Gabriel Boric, a 35-year-old, you will hear his name quite a lot in the coming days. And I suspect if you follow international news, which unfortunately too few of our fellow Indians do, you would have already become familiar with it. So, at the age of 35, Gabriel Boric, in fact, I had never heard how his name is pronounced earlier, so I've Googled it. So, Gabriel Boric at 35 has been elected president of Chile. Once again, correctly pronounced the Spanish way, Chile, not Chile, Chile. Now, he's become the president at the age of 35. It just so happens that Chile's average age also for its population is 35. So, a young leader has been elected. Now, a 35-year-old can become the head of a nation, chief executive, usually because he or she is the son or daughter or grandson, granddaughter, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, like that, to one strong leader who goes away prematurely. But that hasn't happened in this case. Gabriel Boric is sui generis. He's one of a kind. He became a leader as a student activist. In fact, exactly 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when he was 24, 25, he led a massive student protest demanding free education, that is, education without any tuition fee, and then became a national star in 2011. 2014, he became an MP for the first time, and now he's the president. And he is the president by a large margin. Now, interesting thing is, not just that he's a 35-year-old and he's a student activist and he's unusual. He wears tattoos all over his body like, say, Virat Kohli and his favorites in the cricket team. He also hates ties, which is most unlike presidential candidates and serious politicians in those countries. He's very different. But all that is not the most significant stuff about him. All that is interesting, but not significant. There's a lot of other interesting stuff about him. For example, he's also said that he's been treated in the past for obsessive compulsive disorder. In fact, that for that OCD, in 2018, he's also been hospitalized for some time. He's made all those disclosures himself. Now, what also happens is a lot of the young people then identify with him. Because of his informality, he acts his age. Political significance, however, and one reason why we are featuring this in Cut the Clutter. Chile is an important country for India. A lot of the world's copper, in fact, 1/3 of all of the world's copper comes from Chile, besides many other things. 20% of Chile's GDP comes from its copper mines. Nevertheless, the important thing is he is a leftist. He's a left socialist. In fact, in his alliance, he also has the Communist Party of Chile. His alliance is called Frente Amplio. Frente, I presume, means front Amplio. And he has communists as his partner. So this is a left victory in Chile that nobody expected. Chile, by the way, is the richest country in South America. Chile has the highest per capita income of nearly $13,000 on nominal basis. That is about 30% higher than China at this point. That is more than 6 times India's. Chile also has the freest economy. In fact, it's been rated again and again in all kinds of ratings as having the freest economy in all of South America. And yet its people have been angry despite the riches, despite growth, because growth causes inequality. He's been elected and you would say, okay, one communist or one socialist has got elected somewhere. Why are you getting so excited about it? So the fact is, there is a new phenomenon building up in South America. It's a cyclical phenomenon. The left and right looks like the left is coming back. And a lot of people are now calling it the rise of the pink tide in South America. That is in some ways counterintuitive because we see in a lot of the rest of the world, the nationalist right is progressing or ruling and continues to win. But in South America, you find the tide is now turning, and the tide that's coming up now is a pink tide. So look at some examples. Xiomara Castro in Honduras. So a Castro has one leftist in the country called Honduras. Pedro Castillo in Peru. And now Gabriel Boric in Chile. And then if you watch other countries carefully, you can see that in Brazil, Mr. Lula is rising. He's rising. In fact, in the ratings now, in opinion polls, he's more than twice as much as Bolsonaro, the current incumbent. So you can see, and I will give you some more examples also as we go along, you can see that in South America, there is a left or pink revival. It has some intricacies, which I will come to, but first let's understand what's happened in this remarkable country called Chile. Now, if you look at the map of South America, map of the world, first on the map of the world, see where South America is. It comes in like this. On its western coast, you have this very thin country. It looks very thin on the map. It's a very large country with a very long coastline, right, on the western side of South America. It stretches like this along Argentina to its east, and then it has Bolivia, and then right on top, right to the north, then you come to Colombia and the rest, and more familiar countries like Nicaragua, Venezuela, etc., etc. But this country is this strip. A lot of the Andean mountains also are found in Chile. So this is the country. As I told you, this country gives the world 1/3 of its copper. Almost everything in our lives today will come to a standstill without the copper that comes from Chile. Now, what's happened in Chile is that Chile has had a very complex and very cluttered political history. So in 1973, Chile's leftist socialist president, that is Salvador Allende, I never get that pronunciation right, but Allende, Salvador Allende was thrown out or was unseated in a CIA-inspired coup in 1973. And then he apparently died by quote-unquote suicide. Now, if you believe that, you have to be very, very gullible. Because what happens when a military dictator comes in, takes over, throws out a popular leader and says so-and-so died by suicide. You either take his word for it or you don't take his word for it. I don't think there were many reasonable, sensible people anywhere in the world who will take the word of Augusto Pinochet, the dictator who came in as a result of this coup, and he ruled for 13 years with an iron hand. Wasn't a nice guy. But right now we are not talking about Pinochet and his dictatorship. His dictatorship ended, but for a long time the country continued to have the constitution. It continued to be ruled under the constitution that was set up under his watch in 1980. Now, since unrest started in the country, particularly in 2019, and there were lots of street protests, we saw all those visuals on our TV screens, a demand built up that Chile needs a new constitution. Now, for that, a new equivalent of the Constituent Assembly was set up. That was elected, members of that assembly were elected in May of this year. They have to now give their draft of the constitution, and September next year, the country has to have a referendum again on that constitution. Now, the new elected leader, Gabriel Boric, is a supporter of that Constituent Assembly. They don't call it Constituent Assembly. I'm just using an expression that is more familiar to us in India. His opponent, on the other hand, a gentleman called Mr. Cast, Mr. Jose Antonio Cast. He is very conservative. He is as conservative can be. He is anti-abortion, and he is also delivered on his political views. He has 9 children, right? He's also been saying that who's this little fellow, a young fellow called Gabriel Boric? He will take the country the leftist path. He will destroy our booming economy. Haven't you seen what leftists have done to Venezuela and other countries? We will be doomed if he comes to power. But the fact is, almost all the votes are counted. The young Mr. Boric has nearly 56% of them. And Mr. Cast, despite his great deal of experience in politics, just has about 40-something%. So this is a very clear victory, and Chile has chosen the left now. His agenda is simple. Whatever you would find from most social democratic or left of center parties: gender equality, indigenous rights, environmental protections, which is a sensitive issue in Chile, given how important mining is to the country's economy. Now, the good thing is, it's been a peaceful transition. He's made a public statement saying that my country is divided, I will reunite the country. Imagine a 35-year-old with tattoos telling you that without a tie. that I will unite the country. I'll be the president of all Chileans. He's spoken with the outgoing president, Sebastian Pinera, who said in his message, he said democracy worked and you were a part of that. Now, I told you about this 1980 constitution that was set up under the military rule. So last year, there was a big referendum on this. People voted in favor of throwing this constitution out and building a new constitution. 2019 also saw massive protests about inequality. So then they set up a constituent assembly, which I told you was elected in May. Caste has been opposing that constituent assembly, saying that this will not produce an agenda or this will produce a charter that will destroy the country and will become a failed state like Venezuela. And he's been saying that this will become a failed state like Venezuela, and he's been giving out the examples of Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, which have been pauperized by left politics. It's not untrue. They've been pauperized, and Chile is the richest, and yet Chile has gone in that direction. As we told you, Chile is not the only one. There is a new wind blowing in South of America. And now we told you that in Honduras, Xiomara Castro has won, Pedro Castillo in Peru, and Gabriel Boric in Chile. Luca is rising in Brazil, we told you. And it's also generally believed, looking at the opinion polls, that next May in Colombia, Gustavo Petro will come to power, or he's leading. He's a rural union activist and also a Pakka Marxist. Now, if all of this happens, which means after Chile, Pedro rises in Colombia, is a Marxist, and Lula rises in Brazil, then in a short period, major South American countries would have gone under left rule. So why is this happening? Now, you can see that there is a lot of disappointment in America, because America is very sensitive about South America. You know, they've been intervening there. They've been planting dictators. They've been helping coups. They've been trying to destabilize regimes or governments they don't like, Cuba being a good example. So you can see that there is some bit of dismay and disappointment and a lot of analysis in America about what's going on. So there is a quote I find in a Bloomberg article from Cynthia Arnson of Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, who says that, look, right now the mood just not is left or right. It is people are not electing leaders who are leaders of the left. People are electing those who are volatile, not necessarily left. Because the mood on the street seems to be, her words, not mine, the mood on the street seems to be throw the bums out, right? Nigalo inko bahar, and bring in somebody who looks unconventional, volatile, shouts, screams, makes heavy promises, is different. So there is a boredom and there is a fatigue with the conventional politician. Now, South America, Latin America, this is a very interesting place. It is a region with many problems. When we think of South America, we don't think of poverty for some reason, right? But it's a region, it's a continent of many problems. In the entire world, it has seen the lowest growth overall. It has the most violent society and the most unequal too. It has some economic tigers, that is Chile, Colombia, Peru. Now, all of these have got radicalized, and that is what is influencing its politics in the rest of the continent. And remember, it is the left influences from South America which have fired the imagination of sort of leftist revolutionaries all over the world, including leftist revolutionaries in such revolutionary republics like the JNU, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez. In fact, you should see the videos of Hugo Chavez's visit to JNU. Now, in all these countries, their currencies are in decline, inflation is rising, bond yields are rising. There is a lot of public anger right now, and there's a lot of public anger against the elites, because the countries may have become richer, but the rich have become a lot more richer. And different countries have different triggers. So, for example, in Chile and Peru, people may be responding to inequality, but in Colombia, young people are revolting against police brutality. And once again, youthful protesters are finding leaders. All these changes in these countries are not being carried out by politicians, definitely not by conventional politicians. These are new young leaders like Mr. Boric in Chile who are rising from street protests. That's a very interesting phenomenon. Now look at Brazil, the big daddy or the big mummy, whatever you want to call it, of South America, because Brazil is a very large country. It's also a country that we hear and know the most about, particularly given football, the Amazon rainforests, and its president Bolsonaro, who's a real character. Now, in Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who's generally known as Mr. Lula. Mr. Lula, he was president between 2003 and 11. And then he fell out of favor, and then he faced corruption cases, and then he was jailed. He was jailed, then he got out, and now he's got his acquittal from the Supreme Court. So when he was convicted by the trial court, then he was not qualified to contest elections. But now that he's been acquitted or discharged by the Supreme Court in his country, because in all democracies, no matter how dictators come, dictatorial elected leaders try and come and fix the system, some institution always strikes back. After all, who broke Indira Gandhi's momentum? It was one High Court judge in Allahabad, Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha, right? So institutions, once you have institutions in a democracy, you can never be sure that you got everything in control. So Supreme Court has now acquitted him, so he can contest. He can contest, so look at what's happening to his popularity. If you check his popularity, the polls right now are giving 49% to Mr. Lula and 22% to Bolsonaro. That's more than twice as much. It's very difficult to beat that lead, although we don't know what will happen because Bolsonaro also has a cult following among his people. So 49 to 22, and there is a little touch of irony there. So Sergio Moro is considered the third significant candidate for the presidential poll. He's got 8%. Who is this character? He is the judge who had convicted Lula and sent him to jail and got him out of politics. And I'm so sorry about what I'm going to say. And I feel sorry more for ourselves than for even Brazilians that after convicting Lula and putting him out of politics, disqualifying him from politics, he joined Bolsonaro's party. Later, he had a falling out with Bolsonaro and he's now out trying his own luck in the presidential poll and just deserts. He's got 8% right now in opinion poll. So it's 49, 22, 8. Now, I just told you that a lot of the new leadership that's emerging, they are of the left, but in some cases they pretend to be of the left because they are non-conventional younger politicians who rise from the street. So there is in South America an exhaustion with the political party model. People think all political parties are the same. They say one thing, they do something else. They are either center left or center right. So there is a boredom with center left or center right. So this new wave that's coming in, it has both lots. It has the anti-imperialist lot, that is Cuba, Venezuela, that is very left. It also has a social democratic left. That is what's rising in Brazil right now, what has risen in Chile right now. Now, while all this is happening, something else even more fascinating is happening. That is people moving from left to right and right to left and still becoming more popular. So look at El Salvador. In El Salvador, a leader called Nayib Bukele, who's rising, his approval rating right now is 90%. 90%. He was way to the left, pakka leftist. He's made a hard turn to the right. So he's not defected from one political party to another. He's defected from one ideology to another. And his approval ratings are now 90%. So when he gets elected, what will you call him? Will you call him a leftist or a rightist? Ecuador, on the other hand, is an exception to this rise of the pink tide. There, the rising leader is Guillermo Lasso, who's the first conservative in his generation, but he too has made a hard move from deep conservative right, far on the right, to center left. So once again, left to right, right to left. People make these shifts, but basically all this is happening because Janta, people, particularly young people, are fed up of the conventional political party model and they are tired and fatigued of old politicians. So there definitely is a pink tide rising in South America, but it's not all happening because of communist ideology. It's happening because people are fed up of the political party model, so they want to see something new, and people are fatigued and tired of the same ghiza-pita old politicians. So it's not as if the spirit of Che Guevara is now coming and looming all over South America and will soon be reaching India as well. In India, I suspect it will be very much there, but remain confined to people's t-shirts, young people's t-shirts.